meeting. I just happen to be joined by the chair who is opposite me. My name is Nazia Chowdhury. I'm the clerk for this meeting. And as all of you probably are aware, the subcommittee will be considering the application for a variation of an adult gaming centre licence for Future Leisure, 519 Green Lanes, London. And through the chair, I'd just like to sort of confirm the speakership. So first and foremost, I'm just going to change something. So first and foremost, is the applicant here?
Yes, good evening. My name is Andrew Woods. I'm representing the applicant who is on screen as Ben Tressider. There is Ben, Gavin and Anna on that screen.
Okay, and I assume, Mr. Woods, you will primarily be speaking?
That's correct, Nazia, yes.
Thank you very much. Obviously, we have some objectors joining us for this evening's meeting. Could you just raise your hand, whether it's physical or digital? If you could just raise your hand if you're intending on speaking, if you're registered and you intend to speak. Okay, so I've got Councillor Bella. Hello, Councillor Bella.
Hello.
Can you just confirm if you intend to be speaking this evening?
Yes, please. I would like to speak.
Okay. The next one is Amit Kamal. Hello, Amit.
Hello.
Hi there. Can I just confirm your name in relation to who you're representing?
Yes, so I'm Amit Kamal. I'm chair of the Garden Residents Association in N4.
And do you intend to speak this
Yeah.
evening? Okay, so I'll put you down as second. The next person is Councillor Zena Brabazon. Councillor Brabazon, hello.
You're muted, Steve.
Good evening, everyone. Yes.
Good evening. Can you confirm if you're going to be speaking this evening, Councillor Brabazon?
Yes, I'm intending to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Next hand up is Marlene D'Aguiar. Hello, Ms. D'Aguiar.
Hello.
Hello, can you confirm if you're planning on speaking this evening?
Yes, I'm representing public health.
Okay, so that's number 4. I can't see any other hands that are up. Is there anyone else that I might have missed, or anyone else intending to speak? Okay, I can't see a hand that's up, so I take it those are our speakers for this evening. So first, Councillor Bella, second, Amit Kamal, third, Councillor Brabazon, fourth, Ms. D'Aguilar from Public Health. I think that sorts the speakership, so I'm now going to hand over to the chair, Councillor Sheila Peacock, for this evening's meeting.
Thank you very much, Naz. Can you confirm the recording has started?
I can.
Yes. And my name is Councillor Sheila Peacock. I'm Vice Chair. Can I call on Councillor Amin?
Hello, this is Councillor Amin.
Councillor Nick Da Costa?
Councillor Nick Da Costa, member for Highgate Ward.
And Dahlia?
Good evening, I'm Dahlia Barrett, Licensing Team Leader.
Naz?
Good evening, I'm Nazia Chowdhury.
And we have a replacement for Sadiko Rahman. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Eileen Fingleton. I'm a lawyer for Haringey.
Thank you very much. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Are there any apologies?
No apologies, Chair. All members of.
And no urgent business?
No urgent business reported, Chair.
And do members have any declarations of interest?
No declaration.
No. Right. I know you all got a copy of the summary of procedure, but I'm going to read it out because it is actually very, very important, and it relates to lots of things that we're going to be discussing. The timing is essential. Okay. So the procedure for the meeting has been emailed to all participants by NAS for the purposes of any members of the public watching. We will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the applicant will present their case. The objectors and the subcommittee will then have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the objectors will present their representation and the subcommittee and applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. Please keep your camera on when speaking and off when you're not. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the subcommittee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. So bullet 1, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all your communications via me, the chair. We will take all papers as read unless there's anything you wish to draw our attention to. Bullet point 3, all speakers will be allocated 5 minutes. And I know that a lot of you have a lot to say because I've seen and read very carefully all your objections. So it's only 5 minutes to speak. And when you're speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time unless you request for an extension, which is at the discretion of myself. Please do not share addresses of speakers. And should anybody else who's speaking, please do not reiterate what other speakers have already said. In the event there's several speakers for each party, as I said, please avoid repetition and perhaps consider having a spokesperson to address all concerns. So now we're at item number 6, application for a variation of an adult gaming centre, licence for Future Leisure, 519 Green Lane, London, N41AN. Miss Barrett, can you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. The panel has before them the, sorry, Chair, did we, sorry, I've had a moment there. I thought, did we actually introduce the applicant, but Naz did do that. The panel has before them an application for the Adult Gaming Centre for submitted by Future Leisure at 519 Green Lanes, London, N4. The application is seeking an increase in operating hours for the Adult Gaming Centre. You'll see at section 2 of the report, the principles to be applied. These are the 3 licensing objectives: preventing gambling from being a source of crime or disorder, being associated with crime or disorder, or being used to support crime, ensuring that gambling is conducted in a fair and open way, and lastly, protecting children and other vulnerable persons from being harmed or exploited by gambling. As I said, it's an existing centre which currently operates leave until 11, and the application is seeking a 24-hour ability. On considering the application for the premises, the licensing authority may determine to A, grant it, or B, reject it. We ask, and the licensing authority shall not determine an application for premises license made in reliance on section 1593B until the relevant operating license has been issued. I can confirm, of course, as it is an existing premises, that is already in place. Whatever decision the panel makes, we ask that clear reasons are provided for the actual resolution, please. Chair, if I can go through, please, at this point for the application bundle. So you have the application, Chair, that's been submitted. There is the local area gambling risk assessment that you can see from page 17 onwards, which really is like the Bible. It's really what the operator has said, that you know what they've carried out. Their sorry, Chair, I've just seen a message come through. There is Miss Martinez, I believe, who's trying to get into the meeting. I don't know if the clerk. Still in meeting with. Okay.
If yes, I'll yeah.
Thank you. So the area gambling risk assessment really the applicant has gone through and carried out observations in the area, and these are summarised throughout the local risk assessment. The panel will, of course, note that from Haringey's own local area profile, which is really a guidance document that is held alongside the statement of licensing policy, that the Green Lanes area in itself is one of the areas of concern within the Haringey statement of gambling policy in terms of potential risk from gambling for the local community in that location. However, the document from the applicant basically takes you through what risks they've identified and what mitigation they are able to put in place. Within the pack also, Chair, there is a representation from the licensing police. Let me just highlight that because they did make representation in order to ask for additional conditions for Maglock will be available during certain hours, and that has been mediated with the applicant, and the police have withdrawn their representation, Chair. There is also representation, Chair, from Public Health who are here this evening, the 2 ward councillors, and there is a written representation also from the licensing authority, Chair, with regard on this matter. Can I just explain that the majority of the residents' representations, there are some in the main pack, but an additional bundle was circulated and was made available on the website also, that had all the residents' representations in there, just for ease of reference. Right. So once the panel has heard from all parties, the decision of the subcommittee may be subject to an appeal and or judicial review. Members should also be reminded that the equalities impact and the human rights impact also comes into play on these particular matters, Chair. And Chair, there I will leave it, Chair, if you have any queries for me. Apologies that you don't have the statement of licensing policies, a hard copy on this one, but the links were put on the report pack for easy access by the panel members. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dahlia. Now I'll take questions from members. Councillor Costa, you have no questions for Dahlia?
No questions for Dahlia, thank you.
Councillor Amin, have you any questions from Dahlia?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. So now we hear from the applicant, Mr. Woods.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just before we do, I understand that Gabriella Martino has just entered the meeting room. Miss Martino, are you there?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for
Hi.
welcoming me. I think I had an older link.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry
Will you be? You're registered objector. Will you be speaking this evening?
Yes, if possible.
Okay. So that was,
She's 5.
okay. Thank you. And
Yeah, you'll be called at number 5. That's okay with you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let me now move on to the applicant, Mr. Woods. Please, can you make your representation?
Thank you, Chair. By way of background, Future Leisure, the applicant, is a family-run business. You have on screen Gavin Tressida. His father founded the business. You have Gavin's son, Ben, and you have Anna, who is the compliance officer. They have 15 similar premises, adult gaming centres. 14 of the 15 adult gaming centres trade 24/7. It may be a strange concept to many, and at times it is to me, why people would like to go in premises during these hours, but these premises are used during the night, sometimes by shift workers, sometimes by others. Not that many people, probably maximum would be five people at any one time, often less. But Future Leisure are very experienced and knowledgeable in operating premises 24/7. They know the customers, they know the types of customers, and they know how to promote the licensing objectives. In terms of these premises, importantly, these premises have been open for 3 years, having opened in February 2022. As an adult gaming centre, they offer low staking gambling. The highest stake in the premises would be a £2 stake, average age 35, mix of male and females. There's a condition not to trade beyond 11 p.m. There is a similar planning condition. So if you grant this application under the licensing laws, it doesn't mean that we are allowed to stay open automatically. We still have to make an application to the planning committee. Obviously, you will determine this under the Gambling Act. Planning and licensing are separate matters, of course. Some of the representations do refer to various planning policies. In terms of your policy, of course, we're very much aware of this area. This is not a new application, it's application to vary. We've been trading for 3 years. We haven't had issues. We haven't had any of the objectors knocking on the door saying, we've got concerns because you're not doing your job properly. There are 24 the Gambling Commission general conditions that we have to comply with, and it's not suggested by any party that we don't comply with these conditions, nor is it suggested that we do not promote the licensing objectives, nor, I know you've read all the representations, is it suggested that the vulnerable have not been protected or crime is an issue at these premises. You'll be aware, of course, the police have withdrawn. The police do not make representations to you saying that there are crime issues at the premises. Within the documentation you have received in additional papers, one is my case summary, pages 1 to 9, which I'm summarising now. The original local authority risk assessment had some points missing in terms of houses of multiple occupancy. It was difficult for Anna, who prepared this, to find all of them. And there was 1 or 2 errors with regard to gambling establishments. So the document in additional papers, one is an updated and amended local authority risk assessment that runs to 47 pages. There is then an addendum to the document which runs for another 22 pages. So those 70 pages of documentation, which clearly I don't have time to go through, they go through all of the risks that Future Leisure can see are potential risk at these premises, and it sets out exactly how they would deal with them. And none of the representations say that anything is lacking in any of those documentations. The residents quite rightly have expressed some concerns about this, that they have concerns about risks to the vulnerable, etc. All of those concerns and risks are dealt with in those 70 pages of document. It sets out exactly how we would deal with those. We deal with other premises trading 24/7 in exactly the same way. We've recently, before other councils, and similar documents have been put before them, and none of those concerns that are expressed have come to light at all during our 3 years of trading until 11 p.m. And with much smaller numbers attending after that, and with the maglock on the front door and all of the other conditions, we are absolutely confident that we have all measures in place. In 2022, Future Leisure promised that they would promote the licensing objectives. Nobody suggests that they haven't, and that is their position today, supported by the documentation, and all 3 members of the senior team are here to answer any questions. 5 minutes and 6 seconds. I hope that was just about okay. Yeah, so Ben, Gavin and Anna are here, as I am, to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sticking to the time. It's very difficult, I know, but you've done well. Thank you. Now, any questions from members? Councillor De Costa? Have you any questions of Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Woods, for your presentation and sticking to time. It's always appreciated. I've got a couple of questions in the first instance, and then I may hand over to Councillor Amin and the chair. They may want to come back to you again because I have, as those members on the committee who know me, I have a lot of questions. So you mentioned actually in your submission that you expect minimal footfall, 4 to 6, if not less people after 2300 hours.
Yeah.
So just out of interest, what's then the rationale for opening between 2300 and 0900?
Some customers want us to stay open. The other premises that stay open have customers in. There's generally during the night a steady flow of 1 or 2 in, 1 or 2 out. So it's to obviously provide the service to customers, and obviously we are a business, so there's no hiding away from that.
Thank you. As Adalia mentioned, Haringey Ward is identified as a high-risk area for gambling harm. What specific measures go beyond your general policy to address the local vulnerabilities of residents?
So I'm going to say that a lot of that is set out in the documentation, but specifically at this site, we have 2 members of staff. It's not the biggest premises that you will see. It has 24 conditions. We have 2 members of staff on duty at all times, and I don't know how familiar anybody is, and I'll be brief with this, but adult gaming centres don't have staff behind a screen. Adult gaming centres staff are on the shop floor. If you go into a betting office, you place a bet behind a screen. There's no such counter in adult gaming centres. So specifically, we have 2 people in the shop at all times, so that when anybody walks in at all, they are immediately assessed by a member of staff. Staff assess every customer who comes in and then continue to assess them during the time that they are playing. And the 2 members of staff here, that rationale has worked very well in terms of being able to manage and look out for vulnerable people. There's quite a bit more in the documents. I don't know if Anna in particular wants to add anything, but that's one of the main things that we do here in quite a small shop.
Thank you. So actually, you've mentioned something which I didn't find clear in the LARA or in the addendum, the amended LARA or the addendum. How do you assess them when they come into the shop?
So all staff are fully trained by Anna in particular on assessment. An assessment of anybody walking into this shop is done in several ways. It's done on appearance. It's done on body language. There's obviously an age assessment and challenge 25 if you don't look 25. There's an assessment of the person and their character. There's an overall assessment as to whether the person is mentally capable of making a decision to place bets, whether they're whether they've been drinking or been taking drugs. So it's appearance, it's age, it's behaviour, it's how they act when they walk in the shop, and all of those lead to an assessment as to whether that person is suitable to be allowed in the premises.
Thank you. Could you, or maybe Anna, explain the process followed in preparing the LARA? In addition to that, who was consulted locally during its development, and how many visits were undertaken to the site in preparing the LARA or the local area risk assessment? Depends. Do we use the abbreviation or do we say it in full?
I don't mind. Call it a LARA. Anna, can you answer that?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to Haringey quite regularly as I'm compliance officer, so obviously I need to check the venue on a regular basis. So, but the actual LARA, I went there 3 times. The reason why the mental health buildings were not in the assessment is because I actually had to knock physically in the door because there was no sign or anything on the premises. So yeah, in total it's 3 visits, but I am very familiar with the area because I'm going to Haringey on a regular basis once a week.
Okay, thank you. And any consultation during the process of developing it?
The risk assessment has been done along with the staff members and the manager of the premises.
Councillor, I don't think there was any external consultation. There was consultation with staff.
External. No, there was no external consultation.
Fine, thank you. Can you point to any specific control measures in the LARA that were developed in response to Green Lane's known risk factors, such as high HMO density, the nearby support services, and that it's been flagged as an area of high risk?
Yes, we can. So they're just by way of, I'm Ben, one of the directors. This is Gavin. Those factors we specifically included for this LARA addendum are included in that. So we included the potential risk of vulnerable people from HMO premises, and we deal with the potential risk of vulnerable people entering the premises in the same way as we would if they were, coming off the high street or coming from one of the HMO premises. You were asking about specific measures that we have in place and how the customers are assessed on entry. Andrew Woods explained this quite well, very well, and we follow. We train the staff to identify specific signs of behaviour, appearance, and that is how they identify a vulnerable person. And there are no vulnerable people allowed into our premises. That's the same in the daytime hours, and that's the same if this license was to be granted in the later hours.
Yeah, if it helps, Councillor, I'm not going to go through it. The local area profile is on, and the pages are a bit skew with, but it's 21 to 25 of the amended LARA, and 26 actually, and then the risks identified are all then set out following that based on the local area profile.
Okay. Yes, I mean, I understand that, and yes, the risks are laid out. It's the control measures which I wanted to refer to, but I think you've covered some of my responses there. With regards to the maglock, so the condition with regards to the police, I just want to get some clarification because I'm not sure if all of the correspondence in that regard was included in the bundle. So this refers to pages 91 to 93 of the original bundle.
Yeah.
I just want to get a bit of clarification because it refers to condition 1. Does condition 1 refer to the maglock, or does it refer to the conditions with regards to CCTV in the current license?
I'm just sorry, Councillor, I'm just trying to have a quick look. If you just bear with me, sorry about this, everybody. Yeah, so Derek said condition 1 applies from 0800 to 2200, and that condition is 2 seconds, it's just opening up slowly, of course. Yes, so the maglock, Councillor, will be available at all times. So the staff can turn it on if they want to. So if, for example, there's a disorderly incident outside the premises, not connected to the premises, they can turn it on whenever they want to. But the condition, as agreed with the police, and obviously conditions are ultimately a matter for you, is that the condition would apply. I think it's actually the other way around. The condition should apply 2200 to 0800, as i.e. pretty much the hours that we're applying to extend.
Okay.
Yeah, so my email to Derek is, would you be happy if condition 1 only applied during the extra hours we are seeking? I put 2200 to 800 to 0800. It's actually 2300, but 2200 is fine. The maglock will be available during the day, but our clients haven't needed to use it. Happy to have the condition. So that means the premises door would be locked 2200 to 0800, and customers would have to be allowed, the staff would have to open the lock to allow a customer in. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded.
Don't worry, we got there in the end. No, because
Sorry.
you've answered the follow-up question I was going to have, because based on the wording, but I'll let Dahlia come in first, and then I'll continue my query on this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
Councillor, just to clarify for you, Councillor, what was actually put forward by the police. So number 1 was access control on the main entrance door. Set must always be operational, so any new customers have to be granted access by staff, and that's the condition that was then mediated and the hours put in place there. And number 2 was staff should have access to clear CCTV facial recording images of anyone seeking to enter the venue by way of a monitor system. This will help to manage the amount of people inside, prevent banned users from entering, etc. And number 3 was any loan workers to be issued with personal alarms and provisions for a secure office or pod that is alarmed, which offers a level of protection to staff. And 4 was adequate lighting should be provided to support CCTV during hours of darkness.
Okay, thank you. I assume all those other conditions, were also agreed to.
They are, Councillor, yes.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified, because the wording of the exchange made me unclear if you were stating that actually in your other premises where you do have a maglock, you never have it turned on even at night. So that's why I'm glad you've clarified that, because I was going to say, what's the point of having a maglock if you don't
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Could I interrupt you just for 1 second?
Of course.
Because I have a question that actually fits in with all what you're talking about just now. And that's, you have other businesses. Should somebody come to one of those businesses and give it an area of concern about that person, do you inform your other businesses so they should be aware of either by a photograph or by written that what this person is, and they should be wary of this person? Do you do anything like that? You share information from one business to another?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. I will take a pause for a moment because everyone's heard enough of my voice. I hand over to Councillor Amin or the chair for the moment, but I will want to come back with some more questions.
Councillor Amin? You're muted. You're muted. You're still muted.
I'm okay now. Thank you. Mr. Woods, I thought your summary of how you assess an individual who's vulnerable was quite interesting. And I was wondering how someone with not clinical training or with real training in recognizing vulnerability would be able to judge who is vulnerable. Because if I walked into your premises and think and don't say anything that or display behavior which suggests that I might have a problem, how would you know whether I'm vulnerable or not? It takes quite a lot of expertise really now, especially now, to know who's vulnerable and who's not. And I think it seems to me it's one of the things that I would really, really worry about if you just go by appearance alone. The second question I was going to ask was, you said you did an assessment. So how is that assessment done? Is that just a kind of physical look and a tick box for themselves? How is that done? Or is it done on a piece of paper? Is the person notified that this is what you're doing as well? You are looking at their character and their behaviour. And I think Councillor Peacock raised the issue of passing information about individuals to other premises that you own. I wondered about data protection and their right to say no, that this information should not be shared. So I think for me it was a bit more about the kind of how you judge a person to be vulnerable or not, because in an area like Green Lanes, people are vulnerable. They come from walks of life. They're refugees. There's people who live in HMOs who are just quiet, very, very quiet. But you just don't know what's happening in their lives. It's only when you actually talk to them that you understand there are some serious concerns there. So I just wondered about that, please.
So, I mean, it's a very good question, and one of the most important parts of the Gambling Commission conditions that are general to businesses and to this business is the need to have what is described as interactions with customers. Now, an interaction is not, if the assessment is that everything is fine, then an interaction would not be written down and you wouldn't be noted, you wouldn't be told that you had necessarily had an assessment. But if, for example, you were in the premises for 20 minutes and you started, I don't know, tapping, or your behaviour was a little bit unusual, then members of staff are required to interact with you, and they would tell you why they are interacting with you, and that interaction is then written down and retained by the business and assessed, and that's a requirement that they have to do that. You're absolutely right in terms of it. No premises will do a clinical assessment. It's just not possible to do that. They're not trained to doctor level to do any form of clinical assessment, but they are trained to look out for a number of signs that might give concern, which could be how you are behaving, what your mannerisms might be. If you are looking at apprehensive or any other sign beyond the normal, then the staff would come to talk to you, and the staff would assess you. You know, I could never pretend that that's at a medical level. But the difference in these places is that the staff do come and talk. So you would be spoken to, and the staff in speaking to you would be undertaking an assessment as whether you could stay in, because it isn't easy, and these staff are not medical trained, but they're trained to look out for signs of vulnerability, and if there are signs, they have to interact.
Okay, what's the training that they receive then?
Anna delivers the training, and she will go through various scenarios as to what to look out for, why you need to interact with customers, what the signs of vulnerability might be. That can range from your age, for your ability to make a conscious decision, how you appear generally, not just in how you look, although that is an important factor, but it's how you are behaving. If you walk in and you're looking not sure and a little uncertain, the staff will be speaking to you to make sure you know the premises that you're in, and to ask if you really want to be in there. It's things have changed quite a lot, quite rightly, in the last 10 years as to the amount of interactions that have to be undertaken at premises now.
Okay. And would you say, for example, if I asked you for last year, how many interactions or have been noted by your staff, would you be able to say how many?
I think I'm going to put them on the spot. I think they might be able to tell you in the last month or the last 2 or 3 months, or how many interactions there have been here, or generally.
Yeah, for the last one, it was about over 470, because we just checked not that long.
Yeah.
We've actually, Councillor, just had an assessment from the Gambling Commission, which operators such as Future Leisure do. The Gambling Commission come and say, we're going to check you out and see what you're doing. And as part of that, we had to send them the number of interactions that we do. Anna, you mentioned 400. Is that
470? Around
is that
470
at this site?
That's just Haringey. No, that was just Haringey.
Because
we also do a welfare check. It's not just an interaction for somebody who's showing signs of problem gambling. We also do something that is called KYC, know your customer, to get to know the customer, to know where they're coming from, whether they live locally, whether there is anything that they need, and so we will be able to support them in any way and to assess them.
Everything is logged in a smart tablet. It's called an IHL tablet. That's our system. And information from each shift is passed over at handover. We create customer profiles so that any further interactions with customers that come into the premises are all followed up, and there's a clear line of sight with our customers. And like Anna said, know your customers. We know all of our customers. They're all regulars.
Could I just ask before you finish, Anna? You said 417 over what period?
4 weeks.
Last month.
Checking.
Sorry, you broke up.
Can't hear you.
Last month.
Last month.
This is over all your premises then, presumably.
No, it was quite a lot. I'm pretty sure we checked. It was 407.
Across all the premises for the quarter. That's what's been reported on our return. We have to report, sorry to interrupt, we have to report quarterly the number of interactions that we have to the Gambling Commission. And, you know, if there are any, we also report on the outcomes of those interactions as well. So as far as I'm aware, I believe that the number across all of our businesses was around about 2,000 for the last quarter. For this particular premises,
around 400 for the last.
Anna has said approximately 400.
So I guess I would say to you, I'll just finish this bit and then come off it. I was just going to say, I would worry about 417 people. And it seems to me there are a lot of vulnerable people who are using your facilities. And, you know, for me, that raises concerns, the kind of concerns raised by public health, the public health contribution to the report, and also some of the issues raised by local residents as well. So I think that's an area I think we do need to discuss a little bit more about that, because actually 417 is a lot if it's over a month. And it makes me want to ask how many other issues might we have missed, but I won't go there any further. But can I,
Councillor, can I just say on that point, I'm afraid the Gambling Commission would disagree with your view. The Gambling Commission would give an operator full marks the more interactions that are taking place. Okay. And just because an interaction is taking place doesn't mean that the person is vulnerable. It means that the operator is checking. So we need to. Why don't we check? What you know? If they checked everybody, the number would be even higher, and that would be a really good thing, because everybody, the more they'd be in trouble if the answer to that question was 2, because they're not doing the job.
Yeah, that's helpful actually. Thank you, Mr. Woods. That's really helpful. Can I then ask, what's the proportion of actual numbers of people who've been using the facilities? What's this proportionate of, percentage of, if you like, of the total number of people using the facilities? You know, if you kind of have a figure, but that will be, say, for the last month.
We don't have that information to hand, but just to follow up on what Andrew was saying, I think is an important point to make. Interactions are done with our customers, not just because we feel that they are showing signs of harm or vulnerability. Interactions are done with our customers for our KYC policy, which is Know Your Customer policy, and that helps our staff to keep record of the customer. Then if there is any changes in signs of behaviour to suggest vulnerability, that is then further assessed. So the number being high does not correlate. If that just wanted to make that clear. Sorry, yes. I understand your question.
No, and I think that's helpful actually, to know that you do a lot of interaction with your customers. I mean, I suppose a cynic in me would argue that possibly you're getting to know them because of their ability to gamble, and might not just be about their vulnerability. But that's the cynic in me, and I'll hold my cynic back for a little while. Can I just ask about you said?
Councillor, is it possible you could wind up, because Councillor Da Costa wants to come in as well?
Yeah, I just want one final question.
Okay.
One final question, just.
Please be brief.
Can I just ask about, you said that no one has knocked on your door, Mr. Woods, you know, residents have knocked on your doors and complained or anything like that. But then I wondered, why have you not made an effort? You're a big organisation. Why have you made no effort to talk to residents about this application and even the councillors who are often, you know, the kind of the voice of residents? And it's usually lots of gambling institutions make a real effort to speak to their councillors about any issues that they might be raising in the area, that anything they're coming across or whatever. But, you know, why have you made no effort to consult and talk to local residents about this proposal to extend hours?
I mean, the answer is because for 3 years we've traded without any concerns, any issues, anybody having difficulties with us at all. Nobody. We haven't had any issues. As we just haven't had the issues. We haven't had anybody speaking to us at all. There's just been no need for that to happen because it's been a clean bill of health.
But I mean, this is a big change, and you can see representations in the report. You can, you know, there are lots of representations and lots of worries locally about vulnerable groups, about, you know, about the impact on crime and disorder, you know, all of those kind of. So you've made no effort at all then to talk to residents or councillors about.
I mean, nobody's expressed any worries or concerns during the last 3 years. You know, we trade till 11 o'clock without any worries or concerns. So I think it might be a bit unfair to say we've made no effort. We just haven't had any issues or any need for liaison with any parties. Nobody's had any issues with us.
Okay. Over to you, Nick. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a couple of things. Just following up for Councillor Amin, you mentioned 470 interactions. In total, your interactions across your 15 sites was 2,000. So that's showing that 20 to 25% of your interactions were on this one site. I just want to clarify the numbers because that's what sort of jumped up at me at first.
If you
just want to clarify.
If you could bear with us, we're just accessing that information just for clarification.
Yeah, no, I think let's just, if we could get that clarified, that'd be fantastic. I want to actually follow up what Councillor Amin talked about, which is about the engagement or the lack of engagement with any local councillors, residents groups, etc. In paragraph 38 of your case summary, Mr. Woods, you state that you'd liaise with residents after the licence had been granted. And although you've been operating for 3 years with no issues, anytime any licence, regardless if it's licensing, regardless if it's gambling or alcohol changes, inevitably residents raise concerns and local councils raise concerns, etc., etc. So I understand your response to me is going to be, well, we've had no issues the last 3 years, but I really want to push this, that actually any responsible licensed authority, be it alcohol or gambling, should be engaging with local residents groups and or councillors, especially in an area of high risk. So I know what the answer is going to be. You've already given that, but I just think it is a concern. So with that in mind, how will you now, moving forward, if the subcommittee is minded to grant your licence, how will you engage with the local community moving forward? Obviously, your application has generated a large number of objections. And so it's going to be a lot of work needed in the local community to show that you are a responsible partner. What would you plan to do if you are granted the licence?
Well, can I suggest, and thank you for not pushing me on the earlier point, because I've given you the answer. You know, we would be absolutely delighted to hold a meeting with. There are certainly 2 big residents' associations that have made reps here. There are local councillors who have made reps here. We will be more than happy to meet with those to invite those parties and any residents who wanted to a meeting with Future Leisure every 6 months. You know, if that would, if I take on board what you're saying, and wish, of course, that given the questions you're asking, we should have reached out. But you've had my explanation. But I also think your point is right. So we would be more than happy to set that up and agree to that on a. I'm suggesting a 6-monthly basis, but others may want more or less. And that if that needs to be conditioned and formally documented, there would be no issue with that.
Okay, thank you very much. on risk mitigation, now we've talked a bit about how people are assessed and your interactions with individuals. The proposal is that you'd have double staffing on overnight hours. Could you just talk through a bit how that's managed and monitored for effectiveness? How does that process work there, and how the shift patterns?
Sure. So in terms of staff and how it works in the operation, I think we've touched on this in part of the explanation from ourselves here and also from Andrew. But I think it would probably help, I think, everyone here sort of understand is a customer journey, what it's like for a customer to enter this premises and what happens. So as Andrew described earlier, you know, we don't operate like a betting shop. We're different to that. The staff are not positioned behind a glass counter. They are patrolling the shop floor. And at the two staff, one of those staff would be positioned near the front of the shop to assess customers coming into the shop. When they come in, we do we follow all of our procedure in terms of age verification checks, identifying signs to show that they are vulnerable or not sufficient, you know, not allowed in the premises. Once the customer comes in, we're then interacting with the customer. This is then logged into our tablet, and that's sort of our initial stages of what a customer journey when they come into the shop. If they are deemed okay to play, we're then continuing interacting with them. If they then go and come back another day, the interactions continue with their profile. As I said, this is logged in our tablet. We have safer gambling. We have a robust safer gambling policy to help this as well. We also have safer gambling messages, networks with posters, leaflets, clearly visible throughout the premises. We promote safer gambling messages on the front screens of the premises. There's lots of work that goes into this from our side. Anna, I'm sure will sort of follow up what I'm saying with all the training that we conduct with our staff, our managers, our testing of compliance, ensuring that we're adhering to our conditions. And I hope that explanation sort of gives a clearer idea of that. Anna, I didn't know if you wanted to touch on maybe the training aspect of it with the staff, the safer gambling training, the risk assessment training.
Yeah, so the safer gambling training, so I train staff in Challenge 25. So what do they have to do if a person who looks under the age of 25 enters the premises? How do we log it? What do we do? Vulnerable people, customer interaction, identify, interact, and evaluate. So how to put this into interaction to give a better outlook of the customer. So how to identify the vulnerable customer, how to interact, how to support the customer, what to offer, whether it's setting limits on the machines, whether it's support organizations, self-exclusions. And then we have got the effectiveness of the evaluation. What was the customer response? What has to be done next to support the customer in his journey? I also trained them in terms of a self-exclusion. We also do a national self-exclusion now for customers, so they can feel more protected, because we do have quite a lot of customers who are coming in from other premises every now and then asking to be self-excluded nationally, and we do allow them to have in our premises.
Sorry to interrupt. I've got those figures, and I apologise. The figures that were provided earlier, they may have come from a previous application, but the figure for the first quarter of 2025 is actually 282 interactions at our Haringey venue and 2,420 across all the venues. So Haringey would be a little over 10% by my reckoning.
And then just following on from what Anna was saying there about interactions, once these are conducted by the staff, they are then checked over by the venue manager and then reviewed again by Anna and us at head office level. And then further to that, any response to those interactions, if there's a response from Anna, is then emailed back to them, and this is all recorded, and this is what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. On page 64 of the Lara addendum, with regards to security, you state, I'll allow everyone time to get there, but you state that the need for an SIA registered door person at the front door from 2300 to 600 will be risk assessed. If the committee were, as I said, if the committee is minded to grant the application and we put an SIA person in as a condition between 2300 to 0600 or 0700, would that be objected to?
It wouldn't, no. We would agree to that.
Okay. Chair, I think that's it for me. As I said earlier on, I think everyone gets bored of my voice after quite a while. But yeah, that's it for me for the moment.
Thank you very much. I was going to actually bring in some of the objectors if they have any questions of Mr. Wood or the applicants. If so, could you put your hand? Oh, I can see Councillor Anna. Would you like to go first?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure the applicant is aware that there are two schools within a short walking distance of the premises. So there's Haringey North Primary School and Haringey South School. One of the concerns that I have with your application is that you are now going to open earlier than 9 a.m. in the morning. So you will be open at a time when local school children are walking to school. Now, I'm sure you've seen Haringey Council's statement of gambling policy. In that statement, the council says that it may consider licensing conditions that cover policies to address seasonable periods where children are more likely to gain access to gambling premises. And these in particular include preschool hours, so before the school day starts, post-school hours, and school holidays in the half term. So I'm keen to hear from you, what policies do you have in place to address this, and would you consider a condition that would not allow you to be open at the time when children are most likely to be walking to school?
Well, I think that the point we'd like to make initially, Councillor, is that we are open at the moment when children are leaving school at all times. So we've been open for 3 years when children are leaving school, whether it's 3 o'clock or later, and we don't have children trying to get into the premises, and children do not get into the premises. So I think our initial view would be that we're actually, this application seeks really for nighttime hours, but we deal with the times when children are walking past us, and it hasn't been an issue. I mean, these premises are not attractive to children. I know that's a rubbish argument and not what you want to hear. Children do not want to come in here. There's no music, there's nothing to attract them in. They look quite dull at times. But the fact is, we are open when children leave school, and we don't see anything different in the morning when they're walking to school.
Okay, Anna, I can see you're muted. Have you any further questions? Because I've got other people wanting to come in now.
No further questions.
Thank you. Dahlia, I can see your hand is up.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just going to ask Mr. Woods or his clients about their self-exclusion, and how many self-exclusions do you have at this moment in time? Yeah, and how is that managed really across your estate?
So whilst they're looking up the number, just for the benefit of the other councillors, I'm sure Councillor Da Costa knows, but when we're having interactions with people, people are allowed to self-exclude from the premises, and we're allowed to suggest to them that they self-exclude, that it wouldn't be appropriate for them to be in. So that's a step beyond an interaction, is when somebody actually signs saying, okay, I'm excluding, I'm not coming into these premises. I don't know if the team have any record of how many are self-excluded here.
We're just obtaining that information now.
Okay. Can we come back to Dahlia on that, if that's okay?
Yes.
Sorry, Chair, can I just ask a question that that can then link into this with regards to self-exclusion? How is the information also shared with other betting centres or adult gaming centres in the area? If you could include that in the response to Dahlia, I'd appreciate that.
We use multi-operator self-exclusion scheme. So any customer who wishes to self-exclude within the area of quarter of a kilometre up to 1 kilometre is within the area. So let's say if somebody will self-exclude from a betting shop, that customer will appear on our tablet, and the staff is aware that they need to check the tablet on each shift.
Yeah, so everybody signs up, just in case you didn't get that. Everybody's, all the responsible operators sign up to a self-exclusion scheme which links in to 1 kilometre of the other premises, and we share that information, whether it's a adult gaming centre or a betting shop.
That's correct. I have the number for you, Dahlia. Now, across, again, this is a quarterly report that's sent to the Gambling Commission. So across all of our venues for the quarter, we had a total of 78 exclusions, self-exclusions that were carried out. Of that number, 2 were in Haringey.
Thank you.
I would like to have the Gardens next, and then Marlene. Okay, so Mr. Kamal.
Hi, thank you. I suppose following on from the kind of self-exclusions, how many people have been removed from your premises as a result of an assessment by a member of staff?
When you say removed, do you mean as in asked to leave because of disorderly behaviour, or asked to leave because of vulnerability issues, or both?
Let's go vulnerability.
We wouldn't have that figure to hand.
I don't think we'd have a figure for. We wouldn't record a figure for people who are asked to. We'd record a figure for self-exclusion, and the Gambling Commission asked us to record interactions. And yes, I suppose if we look through all of the interactions, we'd be able to eventually to find out if anybody had been asked to leave, but we don't have that figure.
You have no data about.
No, we have the data. We just don't have it to tell you now.
Bear with me.
It will be in all the it will be in all of the interactions, but we don't have that to hand now.
If you could bear with me, please.
Sorry.
So you have data on your interactions, which is people who you talk to, but you don't talk to everyone who comes into the shop because you don't need to. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right, and you've got 400 interactions, but you probably have maybe 1,000, maybe more people coming into your shop. Yeah.
282 interactions.
280.
Sorry, 282 interactions. Apologies. But that's not everyone who comes into the centre at Green Lanes.
Correct.
And you don't have any data on the number of people who are asked to leave the premises. Is that correct?
That's not correct.
So you do have data on
that. Will all be in the all be in the interactions. Yes.
Right, but you don't know how many people are being asked to leave because they're inebriated, underage, vulnerable.
Well, we do know. We just don't.
Sorry, Andrew, carry on.
We do know because it will be in all of the recorded interactions which are kept on the Smart Hub in the business, but we don't have that information in front of us now.
So you don't know. You can't tell me now.
I can't tell you now, no.
And you don't bother to check this information for your own record.
As Anna said earlier, I don't know if you could.
Yeah, I can check.
Anna, just a minute. As Anna said earlier, all of the interactions are checked weekly by one of the senior management teams. So they read. So the staff, the shop manager will do the interaction, or the staff. There's no point in doing an interaction if nobody looks at it. So Anna or Ben would look at the interaction at the end of every week, and then maybe they'd do nothing, or they go back to the shop saying, actually, this person, you need to speak to them again. So it's all in the interactions, but we don't
so
have
you'd
them
have
in
a
front.
rough number of, on a weekly basis, given that you guys check this stuff, you would know how many people you're saying, actually, these people are vulnerable, they shouldn't be in the shop. You'd know, you'd kind of have a sense of that on a weekly basis if you're reading these reports every week.
Go on, Anna.
Last week there was no child, so there's no challenge 25 at all. No child asked to leave. There was nothing in terms of customer interaction. In fact, if I remember properly, there was a one self-excluded person. There are occasionally breaches, and the customer is being asked to leave, but nothing was done last week. So the reason why I don't have the number to give it to you now, because that breaches, actual breaches and attempted breaches, they happen every now and then. I'm not going to say that they're not happening, because they do, but I haven't got the number right now with me to let you know how many times a person who was trying to attempt a breach of self-exclusion has been asked to leave. I'm happy to provide it to you, but I haven't got it with me right now.
Mr. Kamal, can I just cut us off, please? Because this is your opportunity to ask questions. In a few minutes, I'll be asking you to make your objections, so you'll be able to hold some of that in for then. Yeah. So can I move on to Marlene now, and bear that in mind, Mr. Kamal. Marlene.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to go to your risk assessment on page 89. And you've got on the risk assessment, I'm just going to go to it. Oh, sorry, 56. You've got a map, but you've also, and with the map, it looks at total recorded crime data per LSOA between 2019 and 2021. And it's got here LSOA with no gambling premises. The total number of crimes is 344. And I'll just go to the top one, which is LSOA with 3 or more gambling premises is literally trebled. It's 989. And so going back to the fact that there was no consultation for this drastic change that you want to make to open 24 hours, and there was no consultation, and you know that research shows that opening the later hours, that there is risk of higher crime. Why wasn't that taken into consideration to talk to the local community and at least the local councillors? I just feel that the risk assessment really didn't take into account that serious risk.
Well, as you know, Marlene, we didn't consult with any party. We did liaise with the police, who obviously are the leaders on crime and disorder, and the police don't have any issues with this application. The police have make no connection between these premises and crime and disorder, because there isn't any crime and disorder at these premises and hasn't been for 3 years. And we trade every other site. We have a license for every other site by one to trade 24/7. So we know what customers are like in venues and what it will be like. So we have to take on board the criticism for not doing any liaison beforehand, and we accept that. We will most definitely liaise moving forward, given the points that have been made. But the answer to the question is that the police are happy with this application. The police don't associate the premises with crime and disorder, and our premises generally and at this place don't have crime and disorder.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pick up the other points in my representation.
Thank you very much. Can I call on Councillor Brabazon?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been listening carefully, and I may have got this slightly confused. So bear with me. You talked about interactions, and you said there were 282 at the premises on Green Lanes. You also said that was 10% of all your interactions, whatever that sort of means. But you have 15 premises. So that's quite a high percentage, I think, in relation to having a 50, well, do you not think, let me turn it into a question. Would you agree that that is quite a high percentage, given the fact that you have 15 premises, 14 of which are open 24 hours? So relatively, on Green Lanes, you're open till 11 p.m, but yet you seem to have a high percentage of the interactions across your whole business. And had you thought about that, the implications of that? Now, maybe I just don't understand what interactions are.
Well, yeah, and
so I'd like you to comment on that, please. Thank you.
An interaction, Councillor Brabazon, as I've said, is when a member of staff will speak to a customer and make an assessment or just talk to them to see that they're happy with what they're doing and make an assessment. So it is a conversation between a member of staff and a customer, which is known as an interaction, which can be looking out for vulnerability. It can just be, hi, you've been in 20 minutes, everything all right? Okay. Are you sure you want to stay? So the Gambling Commission, the regulatory body's view is they want more interactions. The higher the interactions, the better, because that means that more customers are being spoken to.
But you could deduce, if I might come in, you could deduce from that, Mr. Woods, that there is a higher vulnerability around Green Lanes because of the level of your interactions, because of your social concern about the people coming in, or you think they're a little bit, you're worried about them. So it may be pastoral. I get your point, but to the layperson like me, or following on from Amit's questions, really, you could also deduce that there's a higher vulnerability in this premises because the number of people you're interacting with under the Gambling Commission's requirements in relation to your opening hours and the number of premises you have. I'm wondering if there isn't a correlation with vulnerability. And I say that as a question, not as a comment.
I'm just trying to do some maths actually, but not every interaction is an interaction based on vulnerability. So I don't think without the statistics, it would be right to deduce that 220 interactions are all vulnerability interactions. They could be related to other things. Are you intoxicated? You've been in 20 minutes. Do you want to stay in any longer? Do you want a cup of coffee and a sit down and a break? It might be nothing to do with vulnerability. So I don't think it's right to deduce that every interaction is a vulnerability interaction. Point two is you can't also deduce that those people are vulnerable. The fact is that, let's say they might have done 100 checks and the 100 checks say, fine, you're not vulnerable, but we've done our job and we've checked. So I think it's harsh to hang by their own petard anybody who's carrying out lots of interaction. And I don't know that 2,400 across 15 probably averages at 160, 170, where at 220 here, it's higher than others. I don't think it's exceptionally high, if that maths is right.
I think you said 282.
182.
282.
So that's quite a significant increase.
So I think the Gambling Commission would say that the team are doing a good job there. And just as the point is, though, that every interaction isn't a vulnerability interaction, and just because there's an interaction doesn't mean that person's vulnerable. It means that exactly what the representations against the application about concerns are being dealt with by the staff in the premises.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we're finished with the questions. So can I hand over to you, Laz? Can I please ask you to call the speakers, please, as arranged?
Yes, that's doable. Okay, so the first speaker was Councillor Abella.
Thank you, Chair. As Naz said, I am one of the councillors for Haringey Ward, along with Councillor Brabazon, who's also here today. And I'm here to oppose this request on behalf of several residents who contacted me about this. Many of those residents are also members of the Haringey Ladder Community Safety Partnership. And the chair of that partnership also submitted his objection. I'd like to say that the reason he's not here this evening is that the partnership is meeting this evening, and the meeting could only take place this evening because it was the only evening the police could attend. So it's not out of lack of interest in this application. I'd like to oppose the application on 2 grounds. First of all, the protection of children and vulnerable persons from harm, and secondly, preventing gambling from becoming a source of crime and disorder. We've already heard that Green Lanes is an area of vulnerability in the borough's statement on gambling policy, and there are a few reasons for this. First of all, Green Lanes is an area of vulnerability. As you might know, hundreds of people from all over North London seek care for mental health conditions at the headquarters of the Barnet, Enfield and Haringey Mental Health Trust at St Anne's, which is a 10-minute walk from this premises. Haringey Ward is home to several people who receive care in the community. It's also home to a women's shelter. So it's home to a high number of people who are particularly vulnerable. Several of these people are already fighting serious addictions, and some of these people are more susceptible to problem gambling than the average population. So I think this is the first point that I'd like the subcommittee to consider. Secondly, there is significant evidence in the academic literature that gambling in the early hours of the morning is correlated to problem gambling. A study by Gamble Aware, which is actually a charity that's funded by the industry, found that problem gamblers are more likely to place a bet between midnight and 4 a.m. And the Royal Society for Public Health has also published research that shows that gambling at night is linked to an increased risk of harm because family members and friends are less likely to be aware of what's happening in those hours. And so these individuals are less likely to get an intervention from a friend or a family member. I've already mentioned my concerns around the fact that this premises will be open at a time when children will be on their way to school. And then finally, I'm also concerned about the impact that this could have on crime and disorder in the ward. You'll know that historically, Haringey Ward used to be a 24/7 economy. And at the time, it became a hotspot for Class A drugs, turf wars, very serious crime. And there was a very concerted effort by both the council and the police to turn Haringey Ward into an evening economy. And that included refusing 24/7 licenses to gambling premises. And since then, we've noticed a significant improvement in the level of crime and disorder in the community. As councillors, we've been working with the police on an action plan to address antisocial behaviour in the ward with concrete KPIs. So a lot of effort is going into this, and we wouldn't like to see this progress being reversed. I think another concern that we have is that we know that often individuals, customers of these types of premises who are disappointed about the money that they have lost as a result of gambling, they often essentially try to break the shop frontages of these premises, and this is quite distressing for residents, but it's also quite dangerous because it leaves glass on the street. And also, residents are concerned that these extended opening hours will lead to an increase in acquisitive crimes, which are already quite common in this area, so burglaries, thefts from motor vehicles, because problem gamblers who might seek to use stolen money to fund gambling are more likely to do so under cover of darkness. So I'll conclude here, but I'm happy to take questions later on.
Thank you,
Next one.
Thank you, Councillor Bella. Next speaker is Mr. Amit Kamal of the Garden Residents Association.
Hi, thank you very much. So apologies for any repetition of what Councillor Anna just said. But yeah, I think our concerns stem from Haringey already being impacted by crime and ASB associated with late night gambling venues. The extended operating hours would worsen these issues. Green Lanes has already seen significant ASB theft and drug-related incidents, and the late night hours would add to these pressures, which I think you said. The streets immediately surrounding the premises are residential streets. People live on them. They would face increased noise and disturbance from late night, affecting their quality of life, and that's a real concern for all residents. Local areas seen a rise in street homelessness and substance abuse. Allowing extended access to gambling facilities would likely attract more vulnerable individuals, worsening existing problems. These issues are in direct conflict with the Gambling Act to prevent gambling from being a source of crime and disorder. The application disregards key local and national policies as well. The Haringey Local Plan, Policy SP10, emphasises the importance of the high street that reflects community needs and values. Allowing these gambling venues to operate late at night and become a kind of hotspot for gambling detracts from the inclusive, family-friendly character of the Green Lanes. The Haringey Statement of Gambling Policy for 22 to 25 states that Haringey is an area requiring additional protection from gambling-related harm due to high levels of deprivation. Removing these time restrictions would go against that strategy. The planning application and subsequent appeals to extend the opening hours at Admiral Casino, which I think is 6 doors down at 513 Green Lanes, was dismissed, and many of the same objections and valid concerns about residential amenity, noise and ASB were raised in that application and remain unsolved. The proposals are also in direct conflict with the Council's public health new superzone approach, which aims to tackle gambling and other factors that could have a detrimental impact on health. Finally, I would just draw attention to the Haringey Statement on Gambling that Councillor Ovat put out recently, which is whether it's gambling ads all over your social media or gambling shops up and down the high street, the gambling industry is firmly embedded in our day-to-day lives, and it's vulnerable people who are paying the price. More than 8,000 people in Haringey have a serious gambling habit with disastrous consequences for them and their loved ones. Here in Haringey, we are determined to lead the way in battling this outdated industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Councillor Brabazon.
Thank you. Anna and Amit have really said everything there is to say about this, so I'm only going to say a couple of additional points. First of all, just to endorse that we have worked incredibly hard in the ward to make Green Lanes a safe and livable sort of high street, and there has been a general consensus with all the businesses that business ends at 2 a.m. Those the absolute latest. So going for 11, going all night is just something which I think for our ward would break a genuine consensus amongst all the businesses, and particularly for gambling in an area of such vulnerability. And why do I say it's vulnerable? Because we have more HMOs in our ward than anywhere in Haringey, about 800. It's a massive problem. It's a massive problem for local residents, of churn, of destabilisation in the area, and people in our inboxes as councillors. There will be many, many complaints about antisocial behaviour and problems that emanate from this very destabilising type of housing. And the people who live there, not all accepted obviously, but many are extremely vulnerable, and many are placed there by other authorities and have mental health problems. And mental health is a very serious problem in the ward. We have got places for homeless people was not in your risk assessment, but there is a 24-hour supervised premises for people who are homeless on one of the ladder roads. There is a hostel for women who are homeless. There are the charitable premises. As Anna said, we have the hospital, which is a huge inpatient facility of people with severe mental ill health, all the sorts of people who would be extremely vulnerable to any inducements to do that. And although you say it's never been a problem, if you're open at night, people have nowhere to go or they're encouraged, then this is something which is encouraging people who are hugely vulnerable to participate in something which does promote their own, whether we like it or not, does encourage people to do it again and again and again, because people will think eventually they're going to win, even if we know the house always wins in gambling. So I think really that I would ask the committee to reject this application, stick to the hours. It seems plenty, there are loads of gambling premises in the area because it is vulnerable. And however much you risk assess it, I realise we work within the constraints of the law. I realise it's about aim to permit. It doesn't mean to permit 24 hours, aim to permit. But people, betting shops and gaming centres are in areas like Green Lanes because of the nature of the population. You will not find this in wealthy areas. You won't find this in Muswell Hill or in Hampstead High Street or in Kensington or in Knightsbridge or in Mayfair. You may find casinos, but not this type of premises. So I'm asking you to reject this application on the basis that it's open enough hours. You have had the aim to permit, a licence has been granted, and we should let the situation remain as it is. Thank you.
Next one. So the next speaker is Marlene D'Aguiar of Public Health.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like, I won't go through what everybody else has said. I wish I had said it first. But I think the points are really valid. Coming from public health, we have to make sure that we are not increasing inequalities in health. We have to make sure that the vulnerable are protected. I've already raised very valid concerns that consultation wasn't carried out, and there seemed to be a complacency that all is fine, really not taking into account that these hours have changed. Since last year, crime has gone up in that particular area by 12%. There's new research that came out last year, so it's very new research that talks about gambling outlets as agents of local area disorganization and its association with crime, its impact in deprived areas, and the association with crime is even when you're looking at there's other businesses in the area. It is significant that in the west of the borough, there's only 6 or 7 gambling premises and 58 in the other side of the borough, which includes Green Lanes and in this area of Haringey. The vulnerability is extremely high, and I won't go into that, but I am really concerned about the children going to school in the morning, the children, young people. And when we went to children looking at the school super zones, which is put in a health and wellbeing zone around the schools, the children spoke to us and they told us of their fear, particularly going down the high street, particularly going past gambling outlets. Parents told us that when people have had losses, the crime isn't always committed in the premises, it's taken out on the community, on the high street, directly outside. And so there's this disconnect in recording crimes that are related to gambling that happen outside, directly outside, and sometimes in homes. We've got very high level of domestic violence. We've got very high level, which is gambling related domestic violence. We've got very high level of people losing money, homelessness. This doesn't only have an impact on the local community, it has an impact on the very resources of the council, the NHS, and other statutory agencies that have to respond to the impacts of gambling harms. Gambling harms is taken very seriously by Haringey Council. We are one of the lead councils on gambling harms in London, across London, and we are taking it very seriously. It's in the health and wellbeing strategy that the high street must be a healthy high street and gambling must be tackled. Just coining Councillor Zina Brabazon's phrase, the aim to permit has been agreed. It doesn't mean 24 hours. The hours should stay as they are, and we are rejecting this application. Thank you.
Gabriella, the next one.
Final speaker is Gabriella Martino.
Yeah, Gabriella.
Hi, sorry, just sorting out bedtime for the children. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a resident. I live very close to the premises in question, and I strongly object to extending the opening hours. Most of the points I was going to speak about have been raised by others, so I'm grateful for that. I'd just like to confirm sort of some of the points made in my written objection. The data really speaks for itself. So areas with 3 or more betting shops have experienced nearly 3 times more crime than areas without them. And as residents, we are experiencing the impact of that crime, and we notice it increasing over time. And we spend a lot of our sort of spare time dealing with the police and talking to the council about how to mitigate this. Rejecting this application would really support our efforts to improve the local environment from a crime perspective. It's already been mentioned that there's lots of vulnerable people in the area, including multiple schools and nurseries, addiction recovery centres, and a women's refuge. And as residents, we're really concerned that extending the hours would directly expose these individuals to greater harm. In terms of the kind of evening economy and evening environment, I feel like this application would make the area less safe and less welcoming for those coming out in the evening and visiting our local high street, which is full of really well-loved mainly local food and beverage businesses and other shops, which appeal to families and a diverse range of people. And this could potentially impact on their success and the success of the high street more generally. It's been mentioned that there are many other gambling premises nearby. We've got Ladbrokes, Paddy Power, Admiral, and many others. This area is saturated for gambling, and it would only increase the concentration in opposition to local and national policy, as been previously mentioned. It would set a dangerous precedent for other venues to seek similar extensions, including 513 Green Lanes, which is just a couple of properties down the road, which recently sought to extend its hours but was rejected from a planning perspective. Finally, just in terms of the character of Green Lanes, as I mentioned, it's a sort of centre for international food. It brings together a great mix of cultures in line with our Borough of Culture in 2027. And it also sits adjacent to a big residential population. It's clear that businesses and residents were not consulted in any form. And we really feel like this would affect the vibrancy and the success of the high street. So I urge the committee to reject this application for the sake of our community's safety and well-being and the success of our local high street. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of your objections. We're now going to take questions from members. So could you please indicate who you want to speak? Is it Councillor Amin? I can't see you. And Councillor Acosta, have you any questions?
I do, but as I went first last time, I think it's only fair to allow Councillor Amin to go first if she's got any questions.
I can't see her.
Thank you. Oh, I'm here.
Yeah, good.
Okay. I just wanted to ask Gabriella and Amit, particularly Gabriella, because you've got a young one and nice to see your baby as well. I just wondered whether you live very close to the premises, to these premises. Have you seen any things that worry you at all in the past, say 6 months or something? Have you seen any outgoings? You know, people being
Yeah.
any kind of any issues at all?
Oh,
that
all the
worry you?
time. Yeah, the Class A drugs being dealt on the high street outside these premises. Lots and lots of litter, big glass bottles, fly tipping, disorderly, noisy behaviour. I mean, you can imagine. I don't think Amit's probably got other experiences, but those are just a few.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there are lots of people. You kind of get groups of men hanging around outside these premises, and that can be extremely threatening.
Hello.
So,
I will call the speakers, or Naz will call the speakers. Okay.
Oh,
Can you, Gabriella? Can you complete, and then I can move on to somebody else.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor
Naz?
Peacock, can I just ask, Amit, he was just speaking about, as a resident, what the concerns were for him.
Councillor, wait until he's called.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Amin, ask him a question.
Okay, Amit, a similar question to you, just about, you know, your experiences of kind of the environment around the premises, and how you think it contributes, how the premises contributes to that environment. You can speak, I think, now.
oh, okay. Don't need to wait. So yeah, as I was saying, I think that I mean, it definitely contributes. There are groups of men who hang around outside the premises, which can be distressing for some people. There have been instances of smashed windows, either at that casino or at 513 Green Lanes, which is just down the road, again, leading to a kind of sense of disorder around the high street. As Gabriella mentioned, the kind of litter, drugs, crime that sort of pervades outside is distressing for residents, and the kind of, it is really noticeable that the noise cuts down after 1 o'clock or after sort of a particular period, and the concern would be that increasing the hours would really just create that kind of nighttime economy in the worst possible way, and would really lead to prolonged periods of kind of crime and disorder throughout the night, which just doesn't happen at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peacock, can I ask a question of Councillor Brabazon and then Councillor Abella, please?
Okay.
I was just going to ask about the nighttime economy. I mean, at the moment, do you find that the I don't know, I mean, the streets get quieter after 11 o'clock? Is that what the quietness happens? Is it when it settles? What's your experience of that? I mean, how does it work at the moment in Green Lanes?
I think over years, Green Lanes has had, as I said, a sort of agreement, more a gentleman's agreement, I suppose, that the latest, the restaurants or venue or club, there aren't that many clubs now, but whatever, would close at 2 at the absolute latest, like the bars. But the restaurants and so on, I think it's all quite orderly now. I mean, there was an enormous amount of antisocial behaviour, but the combined effort of the businesses, the council, the police, residents, councillors, and all the rest of us have, I think, produced a high road which is very highly profitable. businesses doing incredibly well because people feel that it's a safe sort of environment. It's not sort of a 24-hour. It in fact, I think probably has enhanced business, to be honest. So that's my experience. I did want to add, if I might, I forgot to say that we'd had a terrible problem of people living under the bridge, had all that homelessness, but there is also a big hostel right on Green Lanes, Beresford House, with very, very vulnerable people living there, which I forgot to mention. And I did want to add that. And they are placed, it is a privately run hostel. They are placed by other authorities. We don't know always who people are. A lot of people with very serious drug problems who live in that premise. It's not that I can't say they use the gaming centre, but the enticement to gamble, as Marlene says, there are all these correlations which are well documented in all the research. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't really have any further questions. Councillor Peacock, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Da Costa.
Thank you. Yes, I've got a couple of questions for, I think, each of the objectors, if that's okay with you, Chair. So I will go through the order that I wrote your names down, which hopefully is the Speaker's order, but if not, apologies. So Councillor Abella, do you think the proposal undermines the existing council's policies on public health or community safety?
So I think we've heard from Ms. D'Aguilar that the council has made has sort of been a leader in making sure that gambling doesn't have a negative impact on our community, and I think there is a serious public health issue here because, as I said, this is an area that is home to a significant number of vulnerable people, and it's compared to other wards, the number is much higher. So I do see a public health risk here, and I think it's also a health inequality risk because it's sort of extending the hours of a gambling centre in an area where many vulnerable people live. When it comes to community safety, as I said, historically, Green Lanes back in the 80s, for example, it used to be a location of very serious crime, very serious gang-related activity. And there was a very concerted effort by the police and by the local council to turn this around. And a key component of that was the decision to no longer allow premises to operate 24/7. So if you were to allow this would be the only premises on this street that would be operating 24/7. And since we've moved to an evening economy, yes, there is still antisocial behaviour in Haringey Ward, despite the efforts of the council and the police, but it is noticeably much calmer. So I think we would be reversing the progress that was very hard won over many years if this committee were to allow this application.
Thank you. You've actually answered my second question as well with your response there, which was about a previous application refused, and if the concerns raised then are valid now. So I assume the answer is yes, the concerns are the same. Thank you very much, Councillor Bella. Mr. Kamal, if I may come to you now, please, for questions to yourself. In your view, do the proposed safeguards in the application, signage, CCTV, staff training, the interventions policy feel proportionate to the scale of the risk in the area, or do they feel more like generic compliance?
So thanks for that. I think the staff training is a really interesting one because I think, as we heard earlier, despite the kind of 286 interactions, there wasn't even one person, or there's maybe one person who was removed from the premises, or there's no data on how many people have been rejected from the premises. And I think that's quite telling about the applicant's approach to safeguarding the community, really, in that they kind of know how many people they've spoken to, but they don't know how many people they've actually kind of excluded from the premises. I find that surprising. I think the sort of CCTV, if it's on the door rather than on the street outside, there's a lot of this comes down to the design, and in the local area, it's quite difficult to design out crime unless you take a really measured approach. And again, the lack of consultation with residents, I think, really shows that, like, if you were taking a proactive approach to really designing the crime out and taking a kind of, we're going to make this well lit, we're going to show people how we're going to make this better. I just don't see that that's happened, and it sort of, the entire lack of consultation with any residents groups, as you've seen, we're very visible. The Ladders Community Safety Partnership, again, very visible group. It sort of belies an almost casual approach to community engagement that doesn't give me any confidence now. But thank you for the question.
And thank you, Mr. Kamal. Councillor Brabazon, are you there? I can't see Councillor Brabazon. Oh, hello, Zena.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so the application, the LARA, the amended LARA, and the addendum, it's argued that the applicant argues that accounts for local vulnerabilities, and you spoke about this in your submission. Based on your review, do you believe it reflects the real risk environment in the area?
No.
And
do you want any expansion? I think it's all. I think it's because you're required to do it. I think the real risk, the real issue, is not something which the applicant can be responsible for at all. The real issue is that gambling premises will always be in poor areas. So you therefore have to do enormous risk assessments, all sorts of things to mitigate it, with locks and security and all the rest of it. But fundamentally, because of the way the gambling legislation is, the gambling legislation, it's not anything that's the fault of the applicant. But you asked me the question, do I think it mitigates it? No. Because it will all, what these premises, the go to areas of vulnerability, because that's where people think they can, people will be more vulnerable to try and make money by gambling because they haven't got any money, and the businesses know that. So we're caught in that vice, really. But it's not of the applicants making that, it's just how I see the situation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Aguilar, I've got a couple of questions for you, if I may. Academic research, for example, Addiction by Design by Natasha Dow-Schull, suggests that machine gambling is particularly associated with addiction due to its immersive and rapid play structure. Has your team, when encountering people who are suffering gambling harm, seen that people are more vulnerable when it comes to machine-based gambling? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. We don't see people on a day-to-day basis. We don't treat people in public health. That's commissioned out into the mental health services, and we've also got gambling services that we set up in the borough. So we've got 2 clinics in the borough, which is really unique to London. But we have responded to every single gambling consultation that came into the white paper. So the white paper came out a couple of years ago, and we've responded to all of them. There's another one currently in progress, which closes at the end of this, on the 30th, which is by the Gambling Commission, and it's all about machines and the speed of machines. And there's adult gaming centres would have been allowed, according to the white paper, to be to increase the number of machines that they could have. So there was some protections being put in, but there was also some easing, and that the government has just put a pause on because, and this was quite interesting, they realise that there's a lot more vulnerable people and they will not be protected. So that tells me something. That tells me that there's a recognition that the machines themselves do not protect vulnerable people.
Thank you very much, Ms. De La Guilla. Miss Martino, if I may ask if you are, if I can ask you a question, please.
Yes, sorry about that.
Please don't apologise. So, based on everything everything you've heard, and obviously on your submission, do you feel the applicant has meaningfully engaged with the concerns raised both in the local area profile and some of the points you mentioned about youth exposure, proximity to support services, and the area's ASB levels?
No, I wouldn't say that they've appropriately responded to those points that I've raised. I don't feel like it was an area specific response, and clearly this area has, as has been discussed, lots of vulnerabilities, lots of premises at risk, children's nurseries and primary schools in close proximity. So all of these things remain a risk, and a very serious one. So that's the short answer, really. I can expand on it if you wish.
No, thank you. I'm satisfied. Thank you, Chair. That's me done on my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can I now ask Mr. Woods, as the applicant, have you any concerns about what all the objectors are saying?
I've got lots of concerns, Chairman, but I'll deal with those in closing. I'm not going to ask any questions.
Very much for that. Okay, now request each party to sum up, and can I please ask Naz to call the speakers?
Okay, so the first speaker was Councillor Abella.
Would you like to sum up, please, Councillor Abella?
I think in summary, my concerns are twofold. First of all, this application will not protect children and vulnerable persons from harm. We've heard that in the council's own statement on gambling policy, Green Lanes is an area of vulnerability, and we've heard many examples of vulnerable individuals who call the area around Green Lanes their home, or who frequent the area regularly. I'd also like to re-emphasize the research I mentioned that shows that there is a link between gambling between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. and problem gambling, and the fact that research also shows that individuals who gamble in the late hours are less likely to receive interventions and support from family and friends. And finally, I'd like to stress again the point that decades of work have gone into improving the safety of Green Lanes, reducing the crime in the area, and this is largely down to the fact that Green Lanes has moved from being a 24/7 economy to an evening economy. And by making this precedent of allowing a 24/7 premises on this street, we could be reversing decades of hard work by the council, the police, and community groups to turn this area into a safer area, and so I urge the committee not to set this dangerous precedent.
Okay, and the next speaker was Association.
Hi, I don't have anything further to add to my previous statement, but I would just echo everything that Councillor Abella has just said. The nature of the precedent being set.
Okay, thank you. The
next
speaker was Councillor Brabazon.
I have nothing to add. I think Anna has summed it all up.
Okay.
Marlene.
Next speaker was Mr. Aguilar of Public Health.
Yeah, Marlene.
I don't think I have anything to add. Councillor Abella summed it up quite well.
And the last speaker was
Gabriella.
Yes.
Okay, Gabriella, have you anything to add?
And no, I think what this committee hearing has also reinforced to me is how the proposal is actually worse than I originally thought, with the locked door and the kind of blank frontage. It goes against everything that the residents are working really hard for, which is a vibrant, safe, family-friendly high street. So yeah, strongly oppose this application. Thanks.
And now Mr. Woods, please.
Yes, as briefly as I can, Councillor. Point number one, crime and antisocial behaviour. The Metropolitan Police make no objection to this application, provide you with no evidence at all of any crime connected to these premises. And in fact, there is no crime connected to these premises. And whilst I do understand that some people do not like gambling and gambling premises, I think there has been some great generalisations when dealing with the crime point with respect, when there is reference to shop windows, windows being broken by unhappy customers, burglary, thefts with people who have problem gambling, that there isn't a single piece of evidence that connects any of that to the premises. And I know I don't want to come across as a lawyer, but those submissions are quite simply unfounded. There is criticism of the applicant for failing to meet the necessary standards in the documentation provided, and yet nobody, not a single voice, has said they haven't done this, they haven't done this. Again, it's a very, very general criticism of 70 pages of detailed risk assessment, 5 of which set out in detail the local area profile, and a certain lack of understanding. I think Mr. Kamal said at the end, well, it would be good if there was a CCTV camera on the outside of the premises. There is a CCTV camera on the outside of the premises. It covers Green Lanes. I think Councillor Abella was referring to protecting children. Children do not come into these premises. They are not allowed into the premises. They do not go into any of the other 14 premises operated by Future Leisure. So whilst I am aware and I understand the feeling about gambling premises, I would ask the committee on points like that to take into account what are general statements and are really unfounded, and when it comes to it, really unfair on the applicant. The applicant hasn't, as somebody has suggested, just done all of this because he has to. The applicant is a family-run, responsible business who employs senior and experienced people to ensure that the vulnerable people are protected. And they've carried out 282 interactions. It's interesting because 10 years ago, because if an applicant said they didn't do any interactions, everybody on the hearing would be saying, well, that's nonsense, you should be doing lots of interactions. And we're now almost at reverse sweep on that, with 282 interactions being impliedly criticised for too many. It suggests that there's problems in the area. What it suggests is that this applicant protects and looks after and cares for, despite what is suggested, vulnerable people. And that's why they do it. They don't want vulnerable people in the premises. Nearly there. There's references to the local plan, and I understand all of that. I understand that. But a lot of that is planning. And as I said at the start, this is just stage one. And if we get granted here, we can't open. We have to go to make a planning application. And a lot of the points made by the objectors about a local plan, and this is what we want in the area in planning terms, will I'm sure be made if an application is made. But I would ask you, as I'm sure you will as an experienced committee, to assess the relevance of some of those points to this particular application. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything on those. Those points are well made and are relevant in terms of a planning application, but are not necessarily relevant to this particular application. Noise and disturbance, there isn't any. The applicant's done a noise impact assessment. There's no noise connected to these premises. I know you've read all the representations. I've read them 2 or 3 times, and I know at the end, when some questions were being asked, there started to be some comments about, well, people hanging about outside and litter and stuff like that. There's no evidence that any of that is connected to the premises. And having read all of the representations, which set out a number of genuine concerns and some points on planning, etc., etc. Not one part of that representation says these premises don't do this, these premises don't do that, and these premises cause problems. There's not a single word in any of the representations about that. So I understand, and I'm nearly done, Councillor, thank you for allowing me this. I understand that some people don't like gambling. That's not a reason under this Act to refuse. I understand that some people don't want longer hours. That's not necessarily a reason to refuse as well. The question is whether the applicant promotes the licensing objectives and protects vulnerable people and has premises unconnected to crime. And the applicant has been operating here. He has the evidence to say to you for 3 years until 11 p.m, we haven't had a single issue. We haven't had a single person saying I'm vulnerable and you allowed me to gamble. We haven't had a single person smashing a machine or smashing a window. All of the concerns haven't happened, and they haven't happened because Gavin, Ben and Anna and their team take this extremely seriously. I know that some people think, and some applicants may pay lip service. The Future Leisure team do not pay lip service to this. Anna might have missed an HMO off the original Lara, but this application has taken some time to put together, and hands up for the lack of liaison. Everybody has made a fair criticism of this. That is not complacency. That's hard work to ensure that the premises are run correctly. And we apologise as a team for lack of liaison, and we'll be inviting people, and let's see who comes to a meeting at the premises, whether the application is granted or not. If it is granted, we're more than happy to have that as a condition. I wasn't going to bring up aim to permit, because I think if an applicant has to start saying aim to permit, etc., then his evidence isn't very good. I think the evidence here is that these premises do protect the vulnerable people and do not lead to crime and disorder. But aim to permit does relate to the application in general. Of course, it doesn't mean that applications have to be granted, like some people might say, but I'm not quite sure I agree with Councillor Brabazon's assessment of that. Do these premises promote the licensing objectives? The answer is yes, and you actually have in this case, and I'm not going to talk about other cases, and you're not setting a precedent here at all. You actually have the evidence here because you have 3 years of unblemished trading. And can I just end with this note? In 2021, when this application was granted, there were quite a few objections to the application, some by residents' associations who are objecting to the variation now. And there were concerns expressed about granting this application. And Gavin and the team, I think Ben wasn't there now, Gavin and the team said to the licensing committee, we take this seriously, we have measures in place, and we promise you that we will protect vulnerable people and do exactly what we have to do under the Gambling Act. And 3 years later, you can see that they've done that, and they make the same commitment to you now if you grant the application to allow them to trade later. They make the commitment to promote the objectives and ensure that vulnerable people are protected, and to liaise on a regular basis with the residents groups who will be invited to connect with them. Thank you for allowing me a bit more time, Councillor, much appreciated.
That's okay. Can I just thank everybody for the meeting today? It's been very interesting, and I know how hard you've all worked on your objections and your application. And we will be providing you within 5 working days of the meeting the subcommittee's position. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Thanks all.
you.
Bye.
Bye.